Hey guys, and welcome to this new video tutorial series in which I will guide you through building a REST API using Python and Django. At the end of this series you will have your very own fully deployed and production ready API. I will start today by having a look at the web framework Django, but later on we will also cover the Django REST framework extension, have a look how to use Django with Docker, and finally how to deploy everything on your very own web server. You can find a list of all the tools we cover in this video series in the video description. In this video, I assume that you already know the basics of Python. If you don't have any experience writing Python scripts, I recommend you to get first familiar with it and come back later. Okay, let's dive into it. We will start by creating a Django project right out of PyCharm. If you don't have PyCharm installed yet, I leave a link in the video description where you can download it. Okay, so open up PyCharm and click on New Project. On the left hand side you can select Django. So let's give our project a name. I call my project PyBlog since this project is going to be used later on a blog website. But don't worry, what you learn here will be useful for all kinds of apps you want to build in the future. The next thing is to choose the settings for our Python environment that PyCharm will create for us. This is also the place where PyCharm will install the latest version of Django. If you have Anaconda installed, it will show up here ready for you to create new Python environments. If you don't have Anaconda installed yet, you can also use virtual environment. Just make sure that you use Python 3.6 or later for your project, since Django is a little bit different for older versions of Python. I'll use Anaconda to make my project environment with the Python version 3.7. The next thing is you want to open up more settings down here and give your Django app a name. A Django app is a Django way of writing custom code for your Django project. The name should be different from your project name. I'll use posts as a name for my Django app. You can also leave the checkbox for the Django admin interface selected. This allows us later to access the Django built-in admin interface via the user login and change the data in our database. Let's continue by creating our project. PyCharm creates now a Python environment and installs all the needed dependencies of Django in this new environment. Let me speed up the video now until it's finished. Okay, so now that we have a fresh Django project created, we can test if everything works by clicking the Run button up here in the toolbar. You can click on this link down here in the console to open it in the browser. The beautiful Django welcome page should open. Let's switch back to PyCharm. The folder called PyBlog is our main project folder. It contains all the files that Django generates in order to run properly. The most important one is the settings.py file. It contains all our settings and configurations for the project. The next important file is the urls.py. In here you will find all the URL configurations for your Django app. You can see that the one URL configuration for the Django admin interface is already existing. This is because we left the checkbox for the admin interface selected. The next file, the WSGI file, is the web server gateway interface configuration. This file is required to run Django in production. We will cover this later in the video series. Let's head over to our Django app. This is where all our custom code will live. Let's have a look at the first file, which is called models.py. This is the place where you can create your instructions to create database tables in order to store data. After you created your models, Django will create migration files for it. They are stored in the migrations folder. The migrations files are the actual instructions to manipulate the database schema. So every time you change your models code, you want to tell Django to create new migration files. The next file is the admin.py file. It's used to tell Django what models we've created are available in the Django admin interface. Let's have a look at the views.py file. This is the place where you write your instructions what Django should return when we visit a specific URL in the browser. More on this later. The app.py file is a configuration file for a Django app. Here you will configure your app with things like name, verbose name, path, or load your Django signals. This is usually used for more advanced Django apps. And finally we have the tests.py file. This is where you write your unit tests for your Django app. For the moment we can ignore that. Okay, let's begin writing a Django view and display a custom text on the web page instead of the Django welcome screen. Let's head over to the views.py file and create a class called listPostView. This class is going to subclass the Django view class. You can auto-import this class in PyCharm by placing the cursor on the class name and hit Alt-Enter. This brings up a small window. You can navigate with the arrow keys to import it from the right place. In our case, we want to import it from django.views.view. Let's add a new definition called get. This is what Django calls when we make a get request in the browser. We also want to add the request as the first positional argument for this definition and accept all the other keyword arguments that Django might pass with the **kworks keyword. Now I'm going to return a HTTP response containing our custom string. As we did before, let's auto-import this HTTP response class with the Alt-Enter key. Before we head over to urls.py file to configure the routing for this view, go ahead and copy the name of our view class. Over in the urls.py file, I'm going to create a new item in the URL patterns list below the admin URL. Let's follow the example and use a path, an empty string, and now paste our view that we copied before. Here we have to call a function on this class, which is the name asView. When you save this file, you should be able to see the Django server reload. When there are no errors, we can head over to our browser and reload the page. Now we should see the text from our view showing up. So now back to PyCharm, we can adjust the view slightly so that it delivers JSON instead of raw text. We can also do this by creating a new variable, assigning a dictionary to it. In order now to deliver JSON instead of text, we have to change the response class to JSON response. Again, use the auto import feature and remove afterwards the HTTP response from before. Let's have a look to the result over in the browser. If you don't see a colored output like I do, you can install a plugin called JSON View in Google Chrome. I'll leave a link in the video description. Okay, so after our first encounter with Django views, let's begin writing models. So we start by writing the post model that holds all the blog posts by subclassing the models.model class from Django. We will write the fields title, content, and created. The title field is a char field with a limited character amount. The content is going to be a text field, which will be not limited to how much text we can store into it. Finally, we create the created field, which is going to be a date time field and will have a special argument called AutoNowAdd that tells Django to add a current date and time to this field when a new post gets created. After we've created the model, open up the terminal in PyCharm and activate the Python environment. With Anaconda installed, you can just type conda activate pyblock. The name of your environment is the same as your project name. If you're working with virtual environments, you can use the command source activate pyblock. This will do the same thing. You can see that the environment is active when you have a prefix with the environment name in brackets at the beginning of your terminal. Now we can create new migration files for our model with Python manage_py make migrations and apply the migrations afterwards to the SQLite database with Python manage_py migrate. Now that our model is created, we should register it with the admin.py file. Create a new class called postAdmin, which subclasses the admin.modeladmin class. Again, you can import it automatically with PyCharm. To make the connection between our model class and the admin config class, we can now use a decorator. Write admin.register and then in brackets the post class. Don't forget to import your model with the auto import. Now in order to log into the Django admin backend we need a user. Let's create one in the command line with the command python manage_py create superuser. This will ask you for a username and a password. You can leave the email field empty, because we don't need it for now in this example. You can always change these values later in the Django admin. Let's head over to our website and go to the URL/admin. Now we are able to log in with the superuser. From here it's very easy to go over to posts and add new posts to the database. You can see after I've created a new post, in the list view doesn't show up very useful information. To fix this we can add a string definition to our model. This is what Django calls when showing a list of all entries in the overview. So let's go over to a post model and add a string definition. I return the self.title, which is the block title. A new reload to our website shows that the definition is working. So now we want to update our post list view to deliver actual posts from the database in JSON format. To do this we want to change the data variable to posts.objects.all and add the .values function afterwards. This will return all the records of our database from the posts model. The .values function returns all the posts in dictionaries, ready for us to turn into JSON. Let's test this out. As you can see, there is an error message telling us to set a parameter to the JSON response class that tells Django what we return is safe and can be turned into JSON. After another try, you can see there's still an error telling us that the query set can't be serialized to JSON. The reason is that Django is not actually calling a database when we are writing a query like we did before. To force Django to turn our query set into an actual query of data, we have to wrap it with the list function. When everything works fine, you will see a list of dictionaries in your browser. Let's create a couple more posts in our database in order to filter them. Back in our view class we can now update the .all method to .filter. This allows us to filter the posts on all the fields that the post model has. I'm going to filter the title field with a hard-coded string. The __I contains keyword is useful to filter from parts of the post titles instead of the exact matches. I'm searching here to all the posts that have the keyword animal in the title. In order to test this, switch over to our website and do a reload. The last thing is to move the URLs that belong to the specific Django app into the Django app itself. To do this, we create a url.py file in your Django app and add a variable called URL patterns. Assign a Python list to it and add the function path. This is where we connect the URL with the view. I leave the string empty and add our list post view class to it. As we did before, don't forget to call the asView function. Now we can give our URL name and finish the file off by importing our view class. To tell Django to actually use this new urls.py file, we have to import it into the master urls.py. To do this, we specify a URL prefix on which our all posts API should run on. I'm using API/ for this purpose. Now to actually import the urls.py file, we have to use a method called include. Let's auto import this quickly from Django. We have to write the path to our urls file .separated. So this is going to be posts.urls. We also should add a namespace for this include. I'm using API again for simplicity. This is going to be useful later when we're writing tests for our API. We also have to specify an app name for this include, which is going to be the second argument in the include tuple. I'm specifying the same name as our Django app. After a quick reload of our Django server, we should be able to access the API using the URL API/. The last thing you want to do is remove the filter from the query set and change it back to all, since the API endpoint should deliver all the posts and not only a selection. This is the end of the first episode of this video tutorial series. In the next episode, we will start using Django REST framework to continue building our blog API. If you like this content, smash the like button and let me know in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching.